Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another historical humans heritage. And today we are looking at some wonderful Venetian works of defense and, I would argue, art. It is beautiful. We've got a wonderful overhead image, and yeah, do you guys want to tell me what I'm looking at? What this is? Because it's beautiful. It's a bunch of stars.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
sure.
Starry-eyed.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So these are known as Stato de Terra or Stato de Mar, which are six locations in what is now Italy, Croatia, and Montenegro, uh, which the Venetian Empire heavily fortified during the 16th and 17th centuries when it was competing with the Ottoman Turks.
And some Europeans, but mostly the Ottomans.
Mostly the Ottomans. Yeah, the two inland ones in like north central Italy on the border with like Switzerland, those are the ones to deal with the Europeans. But the four that are on the coastline of the Adriatic Sea are very much defending Venetian port interests uh, in the Mediterranean. Now, the Venetian Empire was a mercantile trading empire that lasted for just a few hundred years. Uh, before they get wiped out.
Yeah, they really got their stride during the Fourth Crusade and carried it on before the Turks kind of just
Yeah,
smacked them out of the Mediterranean.
yeah, yeah. So the Venetian Republic constructed these fortifications. These are what are known as star forts. What it is it took the idea of concentric rings for city defenses and decided that you know what cannons kind of don't really fit on those. So we're gonna add little buttressed spikes coming out so that we can mount really large guns and shoot at people.
You can
Uh
also end up creating a kill zone in between the points.
yeah, yeah. Which is why you see the points are offset from one another, so that if at any point someone gets on the outermost edge, the next 2 points both fire directly into that position. And
Yeah,
so on. This is, I believe, a three-layered defense, judging by the different levels of the star. And it is currently the one we're looking at is the city fortress of Almanova in Italy, because the interior has been sort of converted and re-inhabited as a city. Uh, these are they're very beautiful.
it,
I don't quite know what else to say about them other than like they are the epitome of this type of fortification. They show how much it affects the landscape around it, and they are, they're very well preserved, so they do deserve to be on this World Heritage list.
it's also a really neat showcase of or I guess it probably wasn't ruins when people were kind of turning into a city, but essentially it's interesting to see the landscape be converted into a new context,
I mean,
so to speak.
you see that a lot with defenses and with fortifications. I mean, you see that a lot all throughout Europe where these towns were within these forts and they build up to be cities, and you basically have the walls just be some arbitrary fencing in between the buildings. But it is cool to see how this also follows the landscape. I just
Yeah,
I find it fascinating just how well it was maintained, because a lot of times stuff like this will just over time get buried, or the edges will slowly start getting blurred and it'll meld with the landscape more. This is still very stark, and I'm sure now they put a lot of effort into preservation.
yeah, but to be fair, from the 17th century to the advent of historical preservation as a concept, there's a good chunk of time there,
Well, and that's what
and
I mean, to preserve it that long in the interim.
yeah, definitely. I just want to talk for a second about how so we do a lot of things here on historical humans, and with these with these heritage sites, and it's there's one listing for this entire collection of sites on UNESCO. And it's not just that there's multiple locations in a single listing, but it's multiple locations across multiple countries. We're looking at 6 sites across 3 nations. Those nations, of course, being Italy, Croatia, and Montenegro. So it's a multi-site, multinational listing for UNESCO, which is not out of the ballpark for how UNESCO does things, but is certainly a unique thing to look at among most of the sites.
Yeah, it's like despite these countries being different, they have a shared history that is interesting.
Yeah.
And I think this is actually a really great way to segue into talking about the integrity of the sites. Because as you could see, some of them are very well maintained, while other ones aren't quite as good. But there's a lot that they're now facing some vulnerability due to high levels of tourism.
Yeah. Yeah, and the tourism is causing a lot of problems, and with it also the limited buffer zones that are able to be put in place for these sites. Because like even Palmanova, which I think is probably the most well preserved out of all of them, there's a city living inside it. There's like 2 more townships, technically 3 townships if you count the little one in the south, built up around it. Right up to the borders of what it is road and farmland and urban settlement. And it's like, there's a very limited buffer zone you can implement with something like that going on. So the ability to, keep it as it is really quite difficult.
And
Especially as the city's going to want to expand more to accommodate all the tourists coming to see the thing.
And that actually is another great segue to talking about the protection of it. Because all 3 sites have federal and regional protections in place in all 3 of their respective countries.
Yeah.
So it's protected at almost every single level, which is incredible.
Yeah.
You love to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. UNESCO forcing international cooperation. Hooray. I joke, but like, yeah, they all have to abide, they all have to work together for this because it's one UNESCO site.
Well, and they signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, where they all agreed to specific practices and to work in unison and work together on protecting of the property. So I also think that's very interesting too, that they have actual documentation behind it.
Oh yeah, that is new. Like we've done a couple sites that transcend national borders or have locations in multiple nations. I think, but we've never seen a was it a MOU before? We've never seen that signed across a nation.
Which is interesting because I see a lot of you see a lot of them in the U.S. between usually historic preservation offices and companies or agencies trying to do projects, but very rarely do you see transnational MOUs, which is truly incredible.
Yeah, and I think this is the first MOU that's come up in our entirety of our HH Heritage series, which is it's always fun. We found new things.
Yeah,
you gotta love that.
and I think that's a great point for us to wrap up on this one and our star forts.
Star Force.
Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, share with your friends if you really want to see more, and let us know what other topics you'd like to see covered, and we'll see you in the next one.